All right, let's dive in. You ready for this? Today we're tackling something PR pros everywhere struggle with, right? Measuring PR effectiveness and more specifically, its financial impact. Like, how do we prove our worth in, dollars and cents?
For sure. Always a hot topic.
We're going to be looking at this article by Philip Odiakose, a real expert in PR measurement.
Yeah, he's got some really insightful points to make. One that jumps out right away is how much PR folks get stuck on proving ROI, return on
Oh,
investment.
yeah, ROI, the holy grail, right?
Exactly. But, and this is key, Odiakose argues that sometimes at least maybe we're focusing on the wrong thing.
Interesting. I mean, in business, showing the money is like everything. So are you saying ROI isn't always the best way to look at PR?
Right, because PR, unlike, say, sales or even marketing, it doesn't always directly equal cash. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that. We're more about like building awareness, managing reputation, that kind of thing.
Exactly. All super important for a business, but it's not always like this PR campaign brought in X dollars. Hard to measure that way sometimes.
So how do we show our value if we can't always point to a specific dollar amount? What's the alternative?
That's where Odiakose brings up this concept of ROO, or return on objective. If sales aren't the main goal of your PR, then focusing on your ROO is way more effective for proving your worth.
So instead of getting hung up on how much money we brought in, it's more about did we hit the goals we set, right?
Exactly. If, let's say, your objective is, oh, I don't know, increase community engagement for a local biz, you wouldn't measure success just by sales, right?
Yeah.
You look at stuff like social media mentions, how many people came to their events, or even positive news coverage, stuff tied to that goal.
Okay, so basically we're moving away from just money, looking more at the big picture of how PR contributes overall.
Exactly. It's a more nuanced way of looking at things.
Love it. Okay, now, Odiokos also brings up these three wise men, which sounds very holiday themed, but I'm guessing he means something else entirely.
He does. He's actually referring to sales, finance, and marketing, other departments. His point is PR can't and shouldn't work in a silo. We got to team up with these folks if we really want to show our value.
So team effort. Everyone brings their own skills to the table, and together we can create a more, I guess, complete story about what PR is doing right.
Absolutely.
But how does that play out in the real world? Let's say I'm trying to prove the value of a thought leadership campaign. How do I work with sales, finance, and marketing to actually tell that story?
Well, you can start with marketing. They can look at lead generation, like how many new leads came in because of that campaign. Then sales can track those leads, see how many become customers. And finance, they make sure everything's measured right and matches up with the bigger business goals.
I like it.
Like growing market share, attracting investors, things like that. Yeah, it's about weaving it all together, showing how PR is connected to those outcomes the business really cares about.
Makes sense. But I gotta think, getting those other departments on board, it can't always be easy, right? They've got their own stuff to worry about. Have you run into that?
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely a challenge sometimes. I think the key is, well, you got to treat it like a partnership from the start. Bring them in early, show them how PR helps them reach their goals.
Yeah, and be super clear about what you need from them, data-wise.
Exactly. Sometimes it's as simple as building those relationships, showing everyone we're all working toward the same big goal.
Makes sense. Okay, so speaking of showing value, Odiakose goes after one of PR's biggest pet peeves, and his analogy is great. It's like judging a gourmet meal just by how much the ingredients cost.
He's talking about AVE, right?
Mhm.
Advertising value equivalency, which tries to put a dollar amount on media coverage.
Ah, AVE, the classic.
Odiakose argues, and I agree with him, that this is so flawed because it totally ignores the real impact, like sentiment, engagement, all that.
So just because an article is in like a fancy magazine with high ad rates doesn't mean it actually did anything.
Exactly. It's like saying, oh, this dish must be amazing because it's got truffles in it, even if it tastes terrible.
Perfect analogy. So AVE, misleading, got it. What should we be focusing on instead?
Measuring the things that matter, the outcomes linked to our objectives, right? Whether that's awareness, reputation, or those stakeholder relationships.
Which brings us back to setting smart objectives right from the start.
Absolutely. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. Do that, and you avoid those mismatched expectations. You set yourself up to succeed, to actually prove the value of your work.
This is such a crucial point for everyone, really, not just agency folks. Whether you're at a nonprofit or even just managing your own personal brand, this applies.
Totally. Think about it, listeners. Are your goals smart? Could they be smarter? It's a challenge for all of us, no matter what we do.
I like that, bringing it back to the listener. Sometimes we get so stuck in the theory, we forget to, connect it to how people can use this stuff.
Exactly.
All right, so moving on. Odiakose also makes this point that PR measurement, it's not a one-time thing. It's gotta evolve.
Yeah, the tools we use are always changing. What worked a few years ago might be totally useless now. Social media analytics, influencer platforms, even AI, it's all changing how we measure things.
It's kind of exciting though, right? Always learning, adapting, finding new ways to tell that PR story. Odiakose leaves us with this great question: how will tech and trends shape measurement in the future?
It's a question we should all be thinking about. What new metrics will we have? How will we measure like VR experiences or even the metaverse? It's all uncharted territory.
It's not just the tech either, right? It's how people behave, how they get information, what makes them decide things. That changes too.
Absolutely. We've got to stay curious about those shifts. Be willing to question what we think we know. PR measurement isn't just numbers. It's about understanding people and using data to tell a compelling story.
So to wrap this all up, what are the big takeaways our listeners should be walking away with from this PR measurement deep dive? I think for sure, got to ditch AVE, right? It just doesn't show the real value of PR.
Totally agree. We need to focus on, like you said, the outcomes that matter. Those things link to our goals.
Whether that's more brand awareness, better reputation, stronger relationships with their stakeholders, all those things.
And to do that, got to break out of those silos. Work with sales, finance, marketing. They all have pieces of the puzzle.
Right, and they can help us tell that complete story about what PR is actually doing for the business.
It's all about connecting those dots, those PR efforts, to the results that the business really cares about.
And of course, can't forget about SMART objectives. Gotta set those right from the start.
Yeah, sometimes people hear SMART objectives and think, oh, basic. But you'd be surprised how many folks skip that step.
So easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and forget the big picture. But taking that time to define those objectives, specific, measurable, all that, it sets us up for success.
Couldn't agree more. And I think the biggest takeaway here is that PR measurement, it's not a one-and-done deal. It's got to change and adapt.
Always evolving, right?
Right.
With tech, trends, and just, how people behave.
Yeah, got to stay curious, question everything, be ready to try new stuff.
That's what keeps it interesting, right?
Absolutely, never a dull moment.
So to all our listeners out there, keep exploring, keep pushing the boundaries, and keep sharing what you learn. We can all learn from each other.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And that's a wrap for this deep dive into PR measurement. Thanks for joining us.